It's baloney time.
Weapons grade bolognium.
That correctamundo, sir.
Let me get to Yop Top. Yop Top. Watching the Yop Top.
Game of Thrones? What is this all about? Just an ad?
Yes, Aaron.
What are they advertising?
The Game of Thrones game.
No, it's a video game? Wow, it looks pretty good.
It's a cell game, I think.
Have you ever watched the show?
Nope.
I have watched some episodes. I am familiar with the show. It's a show, boy.
Yeah, officially licensed browser game. We will not be talking about it.
We're not no dice on that one.
A low turnout.
We just started.
I expect hundreds of adoring fans waiting in the wings. Oh, we've got somebody here. They thumbed up. Thank you, mysterious thumb up the crew.
It was you, wasn't it?
No. Well, yes, but also 2 other people. Did you see the weather in Alaska on July 4th?
It's like 89 degrees.
90 degrees in Alaska.
People, that's a misconception about Alaska. That it's like always Arctic and cold.
You know
it's
what?
not. It gets warm up there.
Do you know what the average temperature this time of year is up there?
I don't.
62.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's weird. What do you want?
That's not weird, man. That's frightening.
It happens, man. Weather anomalies, man.
Hello, Picard.
Sometimes
Steve.
It snows at weird times. I remember the first day of summer, it didn't snow in like Denver or something. I mean, weird stuff happens.
Would you say that weird stuff happens for months on end? Because Alaska's had the highest recorded temperatures for the last month. It's a bad time to be an Alaskan because it ain't like they got air conditioners.
Well, yeah, that's a valid point, sir. I have to say I agree with you on that. The truth of the matter is, it's always a bad time to be an Alaskan because their stuff's expensive,
but
it's hard to get there.
They get a stipend. They get a stipend.
They do get a stipend, but do you think that covers all the expense of the
food
absolutely
and
not.
Fuel no. I would never move to Alaska, and I love cold weather.
I don't. I hate cold weather, but you know, I'd be cool with it now. Since it's 89 degrees, I'd be like ready to go, man.
I would. I wonder if it was humid. I would assume it has to be, right? Because you're putting a lot of moisture in the air just from all the melting surroundings.
It's not like it's like an ice cap up there. I don't think it's that. I don't think there's that much snow and ice. Like I don't think it's every part of Alaska is covered with snow all the time.
No, but the mountains and stuff are.
Maybe it's not as cold up there, or maybe they are evaporating. I don't know. Maybe it's adding tons of moisture. Who could say? It's strange.
You know where I want to move?
I don't.
I want to move to Maine.
Why? Because
Maine.
you can talk like this. There's an nor'wester coming around the Cape.
I enjoy Maine.
Maine, I do too.
I do like Maine.
I love Maine. You dumb.
I enjoy Maine's climate.
You did it again. You said Maine again.
Well, I do. I enjoy Maine's climate. But I've never been to the state of Maine. I've been right to the borders of it. I like the whole lighthouse things and the what?
That's not a good enough reason to live there. I like lighthouses too, but I want to move where the light. You know, Maine gets a lot of tough weather up there.
Yeah. No. Well, not really.
They do. Are you? They do. They get tons.
What would you call tough weather? They get cold weather.
They get cold weather and storms.
No.
Oh yeah.
No. They don't get anything worse.
Did you not hear what I said? There's a
coast.
nor'wester coming around the Cape.
Well,
What's
I
that
wouldn't
mean
live on the coast. I wouldn't live on
It's all coast up there.
No,
It's not that
Maine's
big a state.
big.
It's not that big. Oh,
Maine's pretty big.
turn off the AC, dude. We gotta turn that sucker off. Look, you can see the mic picking it up big time.
I like to think of it as a calming hum.
No.
For our ASMR theme.
ASMR.
You know, where people whisper or they have key clicks and that's all the sound you get and it's supposed to be relaxing. You've never heard of ASMR?
I don't know. I might have. I do vaguely recall something. But I don't think that's what the air can do. You're not jumping up to turn it off.
Well, here's the problem. Well, all right. It's not like I can just take my mic on.
You want me to do it? I can do it a lot easier.
No, it's too late.
I know you hate turn off the
Where's the
AC. It's over on the. You have to. Yeah, it's right. It's right where you can see it if you peek over the top. And don't fool with my cunningly designed green screen protection. Otherwise, you'll screw it. You'll kill us all.
I have a feeling this is a setup.
No, he's not looking. He sucks. He's not good. He's off the show.
Sweet, I'm going home.
No, yeah. Yeah, you did it, man.
Yes, hitting the on button. It worked.
Quick, come back onto the golf or to the chess course. What are you doing? You know, would you just stop screwing with stuff? What are you screwing with that for?
I'm bringing my drink because I had to move it to get.
You know how hard it is to get all this set up? You know, you don't. You're back at the pad chilling. You're chilling and illing.
Hey.
I'm in here working like a freaking dog.
I've been getting here early every Sunday for the last few weeks.
Which is stupid because I don't get here early.
Yeah, I know.
You sit outside like a fool. A fool. I laughed. I laughed long and hard as I was in the bathroom. I saw you sitting up there on the stoop. It is still amusing to me.
Okay.
Sorry, it does. Let me turn off the alarms and various alarms on my phone. I don't know if we got any reviews this week, shall we?
We did not. Reviewing a board game, especially 2 board games that are out of print and you can't play online.
We're incorrect, sir.
Well, okay.
Not out of... Yours is not out of print either, is it?
Yeah.
Really? As popular as that game was?
You have not heard the story of HeroScape.
Well, that's true. I have not heard it.
See, that's how many.
That's what you're
people
hearing.
talk.
Is that the way? You've not heard the story
That's right.
of the HeroScape. It was wiped out in a tragic nor'easter near the Castle Rock.
Yeah, I kind of want a nor'easter.
Yeah. I like the main accent. If you listen to a lot of old radio shows, that's a very
not.
popular accent. You got your main, north.
Well, anything that's up in the New England area.
You also got your French.
What?
Sacre-bleu.
Oh, okay. I was like, that's
You got your Scottish. You know, you've got your. Those are all because the crazier the accent, the better.
Well,
now when you get
you got to really
the old
emphasize it.
The old radio shows were not kind to say the Southern accent, which they clearly are from the South, or the Asian accent. This is where they butcher those in a frightful way.
Well, you have to exaggerate radio so that it comes. It's just like stage makeup. Stage makeup looks horrible when you're face to face with someone because it looks like they've got 2 inches of paint across their face.
That's true.
But at 50 yards, it looks fine.
You know, another popular one. I almost love because it's the 70s, right? When I listen to the old CBS Radio Mystery Theater.
Yeah.
You got your Russian accent.
Yeah.
Me and my nephew Nikita, we were in Siberia, buddy. And you got to get the Russian accent because the Russians are all up in it,
Hey, Pixels.
and they're never nice, And there are plenty of nice Russians, but not on the radio. In America, they were not popular.
Well,
it was the Cold War.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I often wonder if we get turned, or if we're heels over on I never heard any Russian radio programs.
Dude, not only are we heels.
I'm talking in the 70s.
Worldwide.
We
are heels within our own country.
We're in the 70s though. It was pretty much that was the big thing on radio when it comes to conflict.
Well, of
and
course.
The spies were a big deal. So like the Bond stuff,
What do you think that over there the Americans, they okay?
No, I didn't think that. It'd be interesting to hear that. I'd like to hear a translation of some of that. Cool. I don't know. I've never heard it. One would assume that they have radio drama that stretched back, but
sure.
Sure. Can you imagine broadcasting all over Russia? That'd be a Talk about a monumental
Russia is
task.
far smaller than you think.
No, it's not.
Like when you see...
It's what?
No. I mean land mass. Yeah. If you see a map... I did research on this. The traditional map that you're used to seeing, the scale of all the countries is way out of proportion. And one of the biggest out of proportion areas is Russia. Yeah.
Remember last night at dinner I said that sometimes I get my spidey sense tingles
Here we go.
when I think that you're full of crap. The spidey sense is overloading right now. If they can't believe this, what you just said.
All right.
It's not that I don't believe you. No, it is that. I don't believe it. So you're the only person I've ever heard said, Russia, it's not that big.
No, I didn't say that.
And then you said Maine is huge. I
didn't say Maine was huge.
You did. You're like, Maine, that thing's massive.
No, I never said that at all.
Maine is huge. I'm going to go back. So I'm going to go back and look.
All right, here we go.
I can't believe we're looking at this. Now look at the size of that. There it is. It looks the same as it always does.
The blue is actual size comparative to everything else. The dark blue, obviously. And the light blue is what is traditionally shown on maps.
That's still a long country.
Dude.
It's longer than the U.S.
For those watching at home, this is not going to be pretty, but let's see if we can get it to... Oh, no, it's got a green screen on it.
God. Would you stop?
Look at that, guys.
Stop.
Look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crap. That's a made-up website of crap.
Aaron, no,
Don't
Aaron.
fall for these comedy websites.
No, Aaron.
Jeez.
I'm not going to say it because you get all fired
up. You
up.
ruin the illusion of us being here at this lovely pastoral setting.
So like I said.
Yeah, he's full of crap, just like my spidey sense was right, as usual.
See, this is why when you're like, I don't call you out on anything, it's because if you do, you get put down.
That was putting me down?
Yeah.
Listen.
How is definitive proof not putting you down?
Let me tell you something. Anyone that listens to this, whoever wants to agree with Brent that Russia's really not that big a country, you go right ahead.
That's not what I said.
That's exactly.
I said
that's an exact
Russia
quote.
is smaller than you perceive.
What's the difference between that and not that big? It's the same exact thing.
Because Russia is still huge. But it's way smaller than you think it is.
No, you don't know how big I think it is.
Yes, I do. Because when you looked at that map, your jaw was on the ground.
No.
And you were like, oh.
No, that was a cackle.
Oh, it just got showed up.
That was a cackle. It's just stupidity.
Well, your cackle looks a whole lot like amazement.
I'm not going to sit here and fight with you about which whoops.
It's a little late for that now.
Did I just move some stuff? No. Okay. All right, we should be good. All right.
We're also late.
No, we had to go through your dissertation on country sizes and based in reality and your weird Alaska weather report. Strange man. I don't know what you're going for here. Okay. You ready to...
I saw a YouTube vid showing the different ones. He's right. Maps are usually way off. I saw a YouTube vid show... Thank you, Necronom. Yeah, I've actually looked into this before, but I'm doing a project that has me looking for maps, and I was trying to get one of actual scale, and I don't think I can use it because it's so far off. It's so different from what people are used to seeing. I think they would not accept it as being correct.
Wait a minute, you're doing a project about maps?
We've already... I've messaged you about this.
Oh, that project.
Yeah.
All right.
Well done.
You're off the hook. It just seems so ludicrous. I'm going to do a project about
Pixels,
maps.
Look that up. Greenland is huge, right? I agree. It's pretty big, but it's way, way overdrawn on maps.
It's no Maine, is what he's saying.
I never said Maine was large. I don't understand where you got that from.
That's what I heard.
Well, maybe that's the problem.
That's what I heard.
Have you went to the doctor and got your ears checked?
Listen, the doctor doesn't see me anymore.
Oh, I agree.
You can only not pay that guy so many times.
You again. Get out.
Yeah.
All right.
You have to pay those guys. They get upset.
That's right, Necronom. That's 100% correct. It's incredibly hard to do that. And the one map that they have gotten that is close, where they broke down thousands of triangles to flatten it out, trying to make it look right, is really weird. Really weird.
Can you imagine someone coming in, it's 7 after 10, they're like, oh, let's listen to some lovely video game talk. And here you are talking about triangles and maps.
They're going to be really disappointed when we start talking about board games.
Board games have a video game tie-in.
So do maps. You complain all the time when a video game doesn't have a map in it.
Well, what I complain about is when you're playing a video game and they overemphasize the size of the various points on the map. That really pisses me off.
Hey, Graham. That's right. Earth flat as a pancake. That's what Aaron thinks.
We're switching this over to a flat earthers show. Hello, all you liars. Get with the program.
Wake up!
Wake up, America. Can we start now? Is there any more map jargon you want to lay down?
No, I am
This
prepared.
is the most nonsensical opening to any show in history. You and your weird crap about maps and Maine and Alaska. There was not a single bit of video game stuff right there, the whole thing.
I like video games.
Well, I know. Yeah, talk about that. No one tunes in to listen to your weather report. What's the weather like in Maine
Aaron
today,
loves
Brent?
this map talk. He does, Necronom. He loves
No,
it.
I don't love it. Clearly, Necronom is in league with the devil, just by the name alone.
All right, guys. We're actually going to start.
All right, guys.
For
Okay.
realsies.
This is not. You're not a school teacher. All right,
Set-
class.
Settle down, class.
Are you kidding
Settle
me?
down.
These guys are sitting back in their underpants, eating a bowl of, like, let's see. Let's go with the Rice Krispies.
No.
And
well,
they're- and
come
keep
on.
their
Couldn't
legs
you at least
kicked up.
do something non-American?
Cocoa Puffs.
I was thinking a big thing of baked beans.
That's not a good breakfast food. Baked beans?
Yeah, it is.
You eat baked beans in the morning?
No, but it's a standard British breakfast is baked beans, egg, tea. Help me out, guys. Oh, is it
Baked beans?
Yeah.
Are they Boston baked beans? What are you doing now? Don't look up breakfast foods of the world. I don't have time for another one of your wacky tangents.
There you go. Sausage. Yeah, toast, sausage,
Well, it looks a lot like everybody's breakfast. Eggs, bacon, sausage.
beans, mushrooms.
That's weird. I don't like beans. I guess if you love beans, maybe farmers eat those for breakfast. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's a thing.
My God,
So-
I'm starting the show. I can't take this anymore.
Woo!
You're an idiot. As usual. You've done it again.
Graham says it's 11 o'clock there, but yes, underpants.
That's right. Graham is living like a king. He's sitting in underpants all day long in a kiddie pool. That's the way I do it. That's basically the way I do it. Can we start now?
Yeah.
Now we got to give more time. I'm like an hour. I'm just sitting here staring at the screen like idiots. Because I don't know what happens. Why does this thing take so long to start? You know? This computer's not that slow. Are you ready? Hello everyone. Welcome to a flat and square edition of ARG Presents. I'm Amigo Aaron, joined by a man who puts board into board games, the Brent.
Hey, how's it going, man?
How's it going? That's it?
You know, the last board game I played at my house took 4 hours.
Well, there you go.
4 hours.
Now, you know-
sometimes we play the big boys.
This week, our topic, as we spun the wheel last week, is in fact board games.
Yes.
An unusual topic for us, but still, it makes sense because we're both big board game guys.
Yes.
Now, before we get into the subtopic here, what got you into board gaming, and or who, and what are some of your favorites that stand out that you currently play?
Well, I mean, when I was a kid, I played the standard fare of American kid board games. Your Monopolies, your Sorries, your Trivial Pursuits. So it was a spectrum of crap. All those games, comparative to anything I play nowadays.
Wait a minute.
they're
Are you
very-
bad mouthing Candyland, for
Yeah,
example?
yeah, they're very simple.
What about Shoots and Ladders?
They're very random, and I didn't understand. I didn't know that there were games out there that really went past all that, and you had to have strategies, and you had to have plans, and you had to look ahead. And I guess my friend Jamie is the one that really sat me down. We played some more in-depth board games, and we started with your Settlers of Catan, your Ticket to Rides, your Puerto Ricos, and those Euro-style board games are all about managing resources or collecting and building a machine that will allow you to do tasks easier. It's a very logistic-based type of systems. And then from there, we keep playing. We play a weekly session every single week. And we also play Saturdays, every once in a while, large board games. I'm talking games that are 4 to 6 hours long for a single session. And we play episodic board games where you play one session and then you come back and what you did the previous session is still, the effects of it are still there.
Like a pandemic sort
Yeah.
of thing, yeah.
And that's sort of new to board gaming, but it has roots in role-playing, which of course I'm well versed in. I've played those since I was a little kid as well. So it's kind of neat how my hobbies are starting to mesh together.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy it. You played board games all since you were a little kid as well, right?
That's right. Now, I'm not going to badmouth the classics, my friend, because there's something to be said for a simple game where you just sit down and screw around. And me and the boy play such incredible titles as Pokemon Monopoly. He loves all the Monopoly-based games. The Dog Do game, I played that. He plays every stupid modern board game. We've played Family Feud.
Here's the thing. There's a difference between children's games, and that's your Chutes and Ladders.
Snakes and Ladders for some people.
For across the pond, right? And your your Dog Do games. Those are less games and they're more activities. Because you don't make choices, you just do what it says to do. Like Candyland, perfect example. You don't do anything. You draw the card. It tells you what color to go to next. There's no choices. It's simply an activity that you follow through with. And then your next step for Americans is your Sorries, your Monopolies, your Yahtzees, where you actually have some choice.
It's not a board game, though.
Yeah, I agree. But you have some choice in what you do.
Yeah.
So there's definitely two separations.
Yeah. I will say, I got drug into I never thought I'd be in the European gaming scene, but I'll have to say that much like Brent, I got drug in. I enjoy pretty much the ones you said are some of my favorites.
Yeah.
I play Ticket to Ride a lot. I got that little sucker on the phone. That's a fun, simple game that is quite challenging. I like Puerto Rico a lot. I like Power Grid, which is a pretty complex game, but it's fun once you get into it, And so now these games can get a little overwhelming after a while.
Well, you have to build up a tolerance. You really do.
Yeah.
The games, like my group is to the point now where we don't play Puerto Ricos, we don't play Power Grids because we've played them to death. And we're really out there looking for the new experiences. So we don't play one game to death anymore. We literally play a game once. If it's really, really good, we'll play it twice. And then we're on to the next best thing. Because my friend is a Kickstarter wheel and deal and fool for this kind of stuff. And we have a community here in West Virginia, in the Charleston area, that really facilitates the buying and selling of games, where you can play something once or twice, trade it with a buddy, and then play their new game once or twice, and it kind of cycles in on itself.
So, before we get into the meat of the show, I noticed it's funny that my game that I chose this week and Brent's game, they both have a common lineage in one company, which is the company TSR, who for a time that were responsible for doing Brent's game. I mean, indirectly. And my game came directly from TSR. And so I thought we'd have a quick look at the sort of the mysterious board game aspects of TSR. If you think about TSR, what's the first thing that comes into your mind?
Dragons. Yeah, Dungeons and
Dragons.
Dragons.
Lair. Wrong. Dungeons and Dragons. Now, a lot of people don't realize that they released quite a few board games, man.
Yeah, well, and they had a good reason to. They had a property.
Wanted money.
They had a property that was popular, but hard to get into.
Well, they also had they expanded, which I'll get into, but just a little bit about TSR's company. First of all, here's the pop quiz, hot shot.
All right.
What does TSR stand for?
Oh, I got no idea.
It's funny. We all know about TSR. A lot of us that are gaming, but no one really knows what's it. Tactical Studies Rules.
Yeah. See, I was thinking that, but I didn't say it.
I can see why they shorten that sucker.
Yeah.
That doesn't roll off the tongue, does it? So, Dungeons and Dragons as a group or as a company were sort of co-founded by a couple guys named Don Kay and Gary Gygax. Now,
Yes.
Gary Gygax is a pretty famous figure.
The face of
Yeah,
role-playing.
and some might say that's not entirely justified, but I mean,
It's not.
It depends on it is what it is. There's
But
always one guy.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, he is the face
of
role playing.
And of course, Gygax, aside from the fact that he co-wrote Dungeons and Dragons, also wrote some great material.
Absolutely,
and
great storyteller.
Was responsible for some of the finest adventures and even some of the finest world settings for Dungeons and Dragons. Now, this was all the way back. They wanted to self-publish this stuff in '73, and then eventually, finally, they got a backer. And so, like '75, here we go, and the TSR is up and running now. For those that don't really know, TSR was headquartered at a place called Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, which I'd heard this for years and years, and I thought this as a child, I thought this must be a mythical place because they would always have the big Gen Con up there, which of course it stood for Lake Geneva. Well, of course, Gen Con when we went was in Indianapolis, so they'd moved it around. Of course, this was well in to the thing. So of course they are most famous for Dungeons and Dragons, which was a super popular game. But they actually had a pretty wide catalog of offerings from back in the day. And I just thought it'd be fun to kind of go over a couple of these because, again, most people don't think of TSR as a company that actually would do a bunch of board games. And some of these I think you may have heard of, and maybe some of these you haven't. Now, TSR actually ran into financial trouble in the early 80s, which is quite amazing if you think about it. And Gary Gygax actually got the boot in '85. Did you know that?
Huh.
Yeah. So if you think about that, and they ran until about '95, until finally I think it was '97. Here comes Wizards of the Coast. They bought up all their rights and are running the D&D properties to this day.
Yes.
Among others. I mean, they also, I believe they were the ones that did Magic, weren't they?
Yes. Yeah, that's their money.
So, in fact, I think they did that before they bought the Dungeons and Dragons property. Of course, they made buckets of cash on Magic.
And then the whole thing was swallowed by Hasbro.
Yeah, well, and it gets wacky from there on. So, anyways, I just thought to go over a couple of these old games at the TSR board games that came out. So, right off the top, you got to have this one, and I think this is kind of funny if you consider what I've covered this week. But in '91, they decided to do Dungeons and Dragons, the board game. Seems repetitive to me.
Dungeons and Dragons, the board game.
Yeah.
The role-playing game.
Yeah.
Of the board game.
But I mean, listen to some of these titles. Now, I remember some of these from back in the day. In 1988, you got a hot property. In '88, you can see how they were making money hand over fist when they released Buck Rogers, Battle for the 25th Century.
Well, that was popular at the time.
It wasn't that popular.
Well, maybe not that point.
Because I remember the TV show would have predated it. They were also responsible for I will say I used to watch this cartoon religiously, Rocky and Bullwinkle. Although they've got Bullwinkle and Rocky. Do you remember? Did you watch that show back in the day?
Oh yeah, love their pinball machine.
Yeah. Speaking of wacky Russians, that was the best. Yeah, the pinball machine's really good. Way back, they were responsible for a game that I remember seeing the box of this game. It was real psychedelic. A game called The Fourth Dimension. You ever play that one?
No, I've never seen that one.
Now I'd say this is probably one of their top titles, board game wise. And I heard about this for a long time before I finally got to play it. Awful Green Things from Outer Space. It was the box on this thing is classic. It's got these crazy looking aliens, and it was just a wacky alien board game that came out from TSR. In TSR, I will say, in their early days, were trying some different stuff. Now, this came out in '79, so you got to think they were a company since basically '73, so they were still pretty young. You know, it's funny, TSR, their name sort of lives on, but they really weren't around. They weren't around and ran by the original crew for all that long.
No,
if you think of
well, I mean, yeah, but it's a company, so that kind of turnover stuff happens.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Now, as you move forward, you get into they're really taking advantage of the Dungeons and Dragons property. And another example of that would be Dragon Strike, which was released in '93. Dungeons and Dragons heavily pitched stuff with dragons in it, which, as you can imagine.
Well, even though they obviously were not the creators of what we think of as dragons, they really took it and ran with it, and they really marketed it. Dragons as their thing, even though it wasn't their thing.
Yeah. Another game I remember, cause it's funny, I would get all these catalogs that would come in my D&D stuff, and so I would see all these games in there, and occasionally we'd pick one up. And this is another one. This is the sequel to the Alien game, Snit's Revenge, which came out a year later in 1980. I know some of these are probably lost on you, but these were at the time. These board games are actually pretty popular amongst the role playing crowd. And what you would use them for, and I guess this is the way they were billed, sort of, would be just something when your group didn't have the time to get a game of D&D in, or just wanted to have something a little lighter fare. And so that's the way they were billed. You could just get your boys together. You could play a little board game action.
Sure, and it makes sense. You have the ability to produce this stuff because you're already producing a lot of paper and boxes and stuff through D&D.
Yeah.
So why not take advantage of it?
Now, in '81, they started producing these little games that were they were about 10 inches tall and about 5 inches wide, and they'd be these little plastic things, and there's a little spot at the top for 2 dice, and you would just open up like a clamshell, and you'd pull out one book, you'd have your dice, and you'd be good to go. They produced several of these, and I actually had one of these. I wish I could find it. I tried to find it for the show. And the one that jumps out at me was a game called Saga Age of Heroes. Again, these were these were very small, and this was sort of a trend I remember happening a couple times in gaming, where you would have these incredibly small
travel size.
Like another one I remember playing was called Devil Bunnies, ironically enough, and that was another one I played where you would have just a little dice and a book, and they were called like little games or runt games or whatever. They were kind of handy little games that got popular. I kind of like it just because you can take them like travel games, like you said. TSR did a board game based on the show Cheers.
Well, that's
that one. I would never.
We call that a money grab.
Well, I'm just saying now. TSR, of course, since they did all the role-playing stuff, they had a lot of the supplements and a lot of the secondary board game title or role-playing titles or role-playing worlds, and so of course you got to take advantage of those. And in '88, here comes Dragonlance, the board game. Dragonlance, based on the role-playing supplements, that was, I think, based on the popular book series of the time. I remember reading some of the Dragonlance books, and they were like, they're okay if that's your cup of tea. Now, a couple of these we mentioned before, we've got to talk about. They published in 1980 Dungeons & Dragons Computer Labyrinth game, which we talked about a while back. I think Mattel was the one that actually made it, published by TSR. A pretty fun game. If you were interested in that, check out one of our previous episodes on electronic board games.
Yes.
Now, one we didn't touch on back then, this is what I'd forgotten all about, was the Dungeons & Dragons handheld computer game. They were responsible for that one, too. So it's the board game you basically take with you, effectively. They did the board game for the movie Escape from New York. Do you remember that movie? Snake Plissken?
I know of it, yes.
You've never seen it, have you?
I believe I have, but it's been, eons.
Now, this one surprised me. And it's another wacky one. You don't think of TSR, but who else could pull off the Honeymooners game based on the old TV show?
That's another cash grab.
Do you remember the Honeymooners?
Yes.
Ralph Cramden?
Yes.
Alice, Sunday Alice?
To the moon, yes.
Have you ever seen one episode, or do you just know that stuff like The Simpsons?
Oh, no. I definitely... No. I know. I've watched the Honeymooners.
You have watched it?
Yes.
Okay. I just had to ask. They did a game here. I have to say, I haven't seen this one, and I don't know if there's an actual connection. Do you remember a movie called Heavy Metal?
Yeah.
Remember the Lochnar, the gimmick in the movie, the Lochnar? No, that doesn't ring a bell. They did a game that is called that. I don't know if there's a connection there, but it's a separate item. Did you like Heavy Metal, by the way?
It was an American anime with music.
Well, when you say it like that, it sounds like crap.
Oh no, it wasn't for me.
So in '87, another timely release, as we near the end of this list, everyone was clamoring for a Perry Mason game.
Yeah, see,
This game, and Honeymooners, who were these aimed at? In the
they're cash
mid-'80s?
grabs. They're cash grabs. They're buy a license. They're just like movie tie-ins for video games.
Yeah.
You get the license, you poop something out, and you hope it makes a lot of money.
And the last one I want to talk about, this is another one I had in '81. Again, this is one of those clamshell plastic travel games, Vampire, and it's spelled with a Y.
Well, at least that is trying.
That's
I mean, not much, but
it's
at
got
least it's
vampires
trying.
in it, man. I think that's cool. I guess when you just summarize their board gaming legacy, really they
gave up.
No, they really only had. I mean, what? If I said TSR board games, what's the game you think of? Is it
Your
mine?
Game.
That's right.
Dungeon. Yeah.
So there you go. But they had quite a few. There were some decent ones in there too. The Awful Green Things is a pretty good one. The Sith's Revenge is good. There were some good ones in there. And I like the idea of the travel games that were pretty fun. But, and they made several. But it is what it is.
It's tough to when you have experienced as many board games as I have. It's tough to swallow when a company makes an obvious cash grab and calls it a board game. The same thing with video games. I hate when these companies do obvious cash grabs and put no effort into what they're making. It's very disheartening.
Well, hey, welcome. That's the way it always is. People need money, honey. So
Garbage.
We were tasked with just digging up a couple board games. I'll have to say, I looked at plenty of games to try, including some of the ones you mentioned. I thought about doing Power Grid. I thought about doing Puerto Rico. I thought about doing Ticket to Ride. I like all those games. I even thought about doing Candyland just to do it. You don't have a choice because I have free will. Oh man, I should have done Candyland clearly. So anyway, but I went ahead and tried to do something I remember playing quite a bit. I've owned a couple times in my life.
Yes.
And it's timely since we just talked about it, and that is Dungeon from TSR. So Dungeon, as I mentioned, and this is a little known fact, Brent, but so Dungeon was released in '75. An old game.
Holy moly! But I had no idea.
And you would never have seen this original edition, which I'll get to in a moment. But a lot of people don't realize that this was actually a game that was sort of developed right alongside Dungeons and Dragons. It was inspired by Dungeons and Dragons, but it came out right on the heels of Dungeons and Dragons. It was so they were. It was designed by a fellow named David R. McGarry. And again, this thing was out way early back in the day, and so amongst the people that work on it were Gary Gygax, Michael Gray, Steve Winter, a lot of the old D&D luminaries that were bumping and shaking. Allegedly, and I've read this a couple places, including Board Game Geek, and Wikipedia. An early version of Dungeon was ready to go as early as '72. So that shows you how. Now, keep in mind that Dungeons & Dragons that came out in, say, '74 had been around for several years.
Yeah.
And being tweaked. And if you're not familiar with it, the story of Dungeons & Dragons is some fellows wanted to add some depth to their very intense, stat-based wargaming. And that's effectively where Dungeons & Dragons came from. They wanted to add a role-playing element to their war games. And so what you ended up with, the result was Dungeons & Dragons. And, of course, that formula has been refined over the years from those early days. If you ever play the early D&Ds, just a little sidebar, it's chart heavy and it's super. It's pretty complex. I mean, it really is. In some ways, it's way simpler though. D&D has waxed and waned when it comes to the amount of complexity involved in combat and using skills and whatnot. I personally, I think I liked. Probably third edition the best. The D20 stuff, I thought that was probably
3.5.
Yeah. I've heard good things about a fifth edition.
Yes.
I think it's out now, but it's I'm too cheap to buy new books, to be honest with you. And really, in my opinion, and I've always thought this way, when it comes to role playing, it doesn't really matter what rules you use. I will flip back and forth, and we have a lot of house rules. I think most people do, and it's because I don't let the rules dictate how the game is going to go. I never have. I learned that early on. You just basically take the reins and You're not going to go out and buy all these new books every day. And also, sometimes you'll go out and buy books and they're garbage. Second edition D&D comes to mind. So anyway,
Fourth edition.
So get this, and I never knew this until I did research for the show. So Dungeon, of course, is a board game that is trying to give you the equivalent feeling of playing Dungeons and Dragons. And it's sort of like, and when in my mind back in the day, I looked at Dungeon as sort of like D&D Light or training wheels, where you can get in there, and then you can see how if you're going to like that sort of game, and it actually works pretty well.
Yeah, I agree.
So the original version of this that came out had a rule book and a cloth. It had a vinyl cloth game board, and you had 4 different little character denoters. They're like almost look like just like you would have in Sorry or something, just generic little pieces. And and you also had a couple dice. The original colors were white, blue, red, and green. So the artwork on the cards was in black and white, and the backs of the cards were covered in different colors to denote what level they were for. Okay, which we'll get into in a moment. In '75, you had 4 character classes you could pick in the board game: elf, hero, superhero, and wizard. Which these are the ones traditionally that I played with. When I played, but these have changed, which I'll get into. They've re-released this game, I think, up 6 times. In fact, I was unaware that in 2012 they'd put out another edition, which apparently is the standard edition now. And the art
recently?
2012. So that's pretty recent. But they were in '89. They changed the class. They changed some of the way the classes. For one thing, they made it so you could play boy or girl of each class. Well, that's kind of cool. I mean, hey, listen, why not? All right. And then you've got warrior, elf, dwarf, wizard, paladin, and thief. I will say it always struck me as odd that you'd have hero and superhero in this game. Because they're basically like fighters.
Right.
It's kind of weird. I always thought that was kind of weird. So it does make sense to go sort of with the traditional lineup. And now that was in 2012, the final version I was talking about. You could have up to 8 players as well. So that's pretty good.
That'd make for a really long game.
Right. So. And if you look over the years, Superhero and Hero didn't last too long. They were around until, they lasted from 75 to 89, but then they got yoinked. So now here's something else I thought was interesting. In the original board game, let's talk about the board game just to make more sense. So what do you do in Dungeon? You pick one of those 4 classes. I'm going to be focusing on the one I grew up with, and then I'll add notes of the differences. You pick one of the 4 classes or 6 classes, and you put your little token in the middle of the board, and your goal is to go through this dungeon and collect a certain amount of treasure, and then get back to the main hall with your treasure. That's the goal.
Yep. That's the game.
Yeah. Each character you have movement, and you roll through the thing. You've got your dice, and there are different colored rooms that come from the center out. Okay, there are 6 levels. The levels I have, let's see here, they're gold is first level, orange is second, red is third, magenta 4th, green 5th, and blue 6th. Each level is harder. All right, so when you got to the 6th level, you're in the danger zone. That's the real tough stuff. So when you enter a room, you're going to uncover either a monster card or a trap card. Mm-hmm. All right, and then if you get a monster, you fight the monster. And if you get a trap, you have to deal with whatever the trap is. The monsters are your standard Dungeons & Dragons monsters. Everything from zombies to gelatinous cubes to different types of dragons to orcs, hobgoblins, all the stuff you would expect to find. And quite a few. You get a pretty good array of monster cards to fight. So when you beat a monster, what happens? You get a treasure token. Or a treasure card. You flip over, it'll say you get 500 gold pieces, or 1,000 gold pieces, or you'll get a magic item of some sort. Mm-hmm. Right? That will age you. Like maybe it'll
loot.
Maybe it'll give you a better combat skill, or maybe it'll make you more difficult to hit. The way it works is if you look on the card, when you go to, let's say you've got a skeleton, and you hold the card up, and the skeleton will have numbers on the bottom. And these are numbers that you have to roll to hit the skeleton with these different classes. So in the case of the original classes. Let's say you've got a superhero. Well, superhero might need to roll a 7 on 2 dice to kill the skeleton, whereas the hero might need a 9. And so you roll the dice, and if you hit that number or higher, you've killed the skeleton. Yeah. If you don't hit it, then he gets to attack you, do damage. And then you could actually be killed right there on the spot. And if you die, you lose your treasure, and you go back and just basically start over with a new guy. So it's pretty simple. So you just keep going.
Yeah.
Different characters have different abilities so each of them are weighted in a different way. For example, if you're playing a cleric, let's say, you may only need 20,000 gold to leave the dungeon, whereas a superhero might need 60,000.
Right.
And so of course a superhero is going to be tougher than say a cleric, for example.
And there are some cases where one class is better suited to fight a card than another.
Right. I'll give you some examples here. So the hero was considered the average character. Okay. He would need to collect 10,000 gold pieces. He's straight up average. And you've got your elf. Elf had a better chance of finding secret doors. Sprinkled throughout this dungeon are secret doors, and what they effectively are shortcuts on the map. And that you have to roll to find them. If you have the elf, you've got a better chance to find them. If they roll a 1 through 4 on a die, they find them. Everyone else requires a 1 or 2, so they get double the chance. And elves need to collect 10,000 gold pieces. Superhero had to collect 20,000. They had to collect double. It's because they're tougher fighters. The wizard had magical spells. You could have fireball or lightning bolt, or there's also a movement spell. But they were real handy to have, and you could acquire multitudes of these spells. Like you up to 12. But to win the game, they had to have 30,000 gold pieces.
Jeez.
That's a lot of gold. And so that's the game, effectively. You go around, you fight these guys. You either beat them, they beat you, or it's a draw, and then you determine if you get killed or not. That's pretty much the game. So what did this game? It's simple, right? What's it got going for it? Well, the simplicity is part of the reason that it's fun. You get that feeling of trouncing through a dungeon and looting and having a good time without actually having to do the role-playing parts of it. I guess you could if you wanted to. The way the levels are set up is smart, since they branch out from the center. When you go far away, you're getting more into more treacherous territory, which makes it feel like you're exploring. It's kind of fun. The map and the art in the original was pretty...
Very stylized.
Well, the original one was... the one that most people think about would be the dungeon. It just says dungeon in big red sprawled letters in the front. It's got this artwork that looks a lot like, say, stuff you'd find in old modules, because it is. Same guy did the art. But the original was in a square box, since it had a cloth map. It wasn't in the rectangular box. And it had a more simple cover. The art was okay. The art, in my opinion, in the one that came out in the late 70s, early 80s, the traditional one we all talk about, is my favorite art. But the art is really neat. The map is very mazy, but in between the little mazy parts, they've drawn little figurines and shapes.
Yeah,
stuff sneaking
it's very
around.
interesting. It's visually interesting.
It is. And of course, the box is cool looking. The rules are, all the art in it's really good. And art was a large portion of what made Dungeons and Dragons fun. They would always get some really good fantasy art guys to come in and do all the art.
And it was always very surreal. They never went for just a base realistic look. It was always stylized.
That's right.
Stylized.
So get this. So you had revisions of Dungeon ranging from 76, then they had 80, 81, 89, and 92. And then they also had, of course, you had your ones that went into the 2000s. There was actually, in 2014, there was actually when 5th edition came out, they redid the art on it again. Now, if you look at the dungeon boxes, the new art, and the art has gotten more cartoony over the years. Well, I mean, it's not bad art. It's okay, But I prefer that's the second version, like the traditional, because I grew up with that. So the kids now might enjoy the new stuff. Now, here's something I think is great about Dungeon, and art style aside, you can pick this thing up right now. It's still in print. Keep that in mind.
Are you sure it's still in print?
It's absolutely still in print. You can go out for about $20. You can pick this thing up. All right, and you can take it home and pretty much play, for the most part, the same game the way it was played back when it first came out. It really hasn't changed all that much. The basic concepts of going to the rooms, looting them, the different colored rooms, it's all there. In the earliest version, they would actually put the treasure stuff on the map, which was a much bigger pain in the butt.
Yeah.
In this version, and all the ones after that, the cards all set off the side.
Yeah.
Because the map, the squares are just big enough for the tokens. Something else that's changed is instead of using a little generic game pieces, they've got the cardboard standees.
Yeah.
For the newer version. So that gives you a little more fun. So here's something I didn't know, Brent, as well. There was a computer version of Dungeon released. Did you know that?
I actually believe that I did know that.
There's no way you could have known that.
I think I did know that.
It came out in 1982 for the Apple II.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I knew you. I knew you didn't. Now get this. This was named in 1984. This was the 1984 Best Multiplayer Video Game / Computer Game. It won this at a certificate of merit in the category at the 5th annual, one of our favorites, the ARGs, at the ARG Awards, which we've talked about the ARGs a bunch of times.
Is that an Apple only award?
No, the ARGs, I think they're the whole.
I mean, I've never played Dungeon on the Apple II, but that award is wrong.
I like the ARGs. So let's talk about some reviews of Dungeon. It's funny, most reviews were pretty favorable for it. But it's funny, on Geek I found a couple of funny ones that they had highlighted. When looking at the second edition of Dungeon in The Space Gamer, issue 38, Forrest Johnson commented, "Whoever decided to make this simple game even simpler should have his brains impounded before he does more damage. Recommended to rank beginners and the hopelessly drunk."
Yes, I actually
That's
agree.
probably why we like it. I'm pretty much hopelessly drunk. That's all. There's hope. So in 2010, a fellow named Robert Schwalb, he said he included this game in his 100 best board games. Which, hey, listen, in this country, it's a pretty popular game.
Popularity doesn't mean good.
Well, I think you're being a little harsh, but we'll get to your comments in a minute. So to close this up, I did get a list of everything that is included in the modern game. So you've got your, of course, you've got your board, you've got your tokens, you've got your couple dice. Now here's something else I'd forgotten about. In the old games, this is a D&D thing I want to bring up because it also happened in Dungeon. D&D dice would be dice with numbers engraved in the side, right? They weren't like pips; they were numbers, right? And then they'd always come with a crayon. Remember this? And you'd have to fill in the number so you could see it. I've got dice all over the place like that. I always thought it was wacky that they would come with a crayon and you had to fill in the insides of the numbers. You don't remember that,
I've never done that before.
Anyone that's an old school guy will remember this. Anyway, you've got 110 grave markers that come with this game. That's a lot of small pieces, but you have to put those things, you have to put those in to denote that you've been in the room.
Yeah.
And you get 61 monster cards, which is that's a goodly amount of monster cards that would come along with the game, and 24 spell cards. By the way, that third spell I was thinking about was Teleport. Teleport was the third one. So overall, to summarize my feelings of the game, I've always been a big fan of this game. It's fun to sit down and play. It's quick. It's the family can play it. It's not gory. It's not scary. It can be a little scary, I guess, for little kids because you're going to scary fighting monsters. You don't know what's in there. But I like it. I mean, I always think this is a fun game. It's not European or anything like that, but it's just a fun diversion. It's a good way to get your feet wet in the D&D world. What did you think about Dungeon?
It's a horrible game. I mean, the actual game part of it is horrible.
You have become a game snob.
You are literally just rolling dice and moving around. There's no There's no decision to be made. You're simply experiencing the game.
No, you can decide.
Now,
That's not true. You can decide what level you want to tackle first.
No, that's not a choice. Because what idiots can be like, I'm going to go to level 6 first. They're just going to die. Here's the thing. That doesn't make this bad. It just makes it a boring board game. If you have a bunch of people sitting around that are just going to talk and they don't want a mind-melting experience, they just want to have a distraction for their beer, for their hot dog, for their conversation, Dungeon is perfect. It can sit in the middle of the table. It's very interesting to look at. You roll your dice, you move your figures. There's no complexity to it at all. For that sort of thing, it's incredible because it's very visually appealing. But for a board game to sit down when you actually want to play a game and experience a fun game or have choices to make, it falls right into the 1970s and 80s American board game trap of keep it simple, stupid, where you have no real decision to be made.
He's a board game snob, everybody.
This
is what happens when you put your toe in more complex zones. You forget about the simple pleasures of a game like Dungeon.
You're right, because I don't want to just roll dice all day.
Where you do make decisions.
You don't make decisions.
You do have fun. You're actually competing
I
against
didn't
monsters.
say you didn't have fun. I never once said you don't have fun.
He did say it.
I told you how you have to have fun in Dungeon.
He hates fun.
You have to not play Dungeon to have fun. You have to just let it play itself.
I don't agree with you on that. I think there's a lot of gameplay here, and I think it's a lot of fun. But
what gameplay is there?
I think it's a good time. And sometimes you just want to have something light fare, is my point.
And what did I say? Yeah. If this is just going to be on the table while you're chatting about other things, it's a fine time.
Snob, board game snob. So, we don't have any board game reviews of this. This is a little difficult one to review.
Yeah.
So
well, I think the guy reviewed it pretty well.
We'll move on to your incredible choice here. What do you got for us?
I brought something that is Americanized, and it is really not something I would normally play, but I certainly played a lot when it came out, and that's HeroScape. Not to be confused with Hero Quest, which is also a very good board game based on a RPG element that is really, it's the step up in complexity to Dungeon, which makes it a much better game.
It is much better. It is more complex, but it's also a good game, yeah.
But HeroScape is a collectible miniature game at its heart. And let me explain a little, to really understand HeroScape, you have to step back. Before I actually go into what it is, let me explain how it came to be. HeroScape was made as a miniature war game. And in the same vein as Warhammer or other army-based games of that fare, where it's about being tactical, positioning to achieve a goal. And what they did with this was they wanted to push a system that was easy for people to get into, but also very diverse. And that's how HeroScape came to be. And then when they made it, the master set, which was released in 2004, if you can believe it,
not long ago,
with hundreds of these hex tiles. And the hex tiles fit together almost like Lego. You can snap them beside each other, and you can also stack them on top of each other. So much so that you could have overhangs, you could have tunnels and caves, bridges with the hexes. And not all of the hex pieces are single pieces. Sometimes they will have 16 pieces pre-welded together, and that's really your base. When you have to have a lot of tiles, you don't want to sit there and individually pluck 16 of them together. They're pre-molded pieces that you can just put down and you're ready to go.
You make your own board in this board game.
And it comes with hundreds of pieces, just like a Lego set. So that's your terrain. And later on, the terrain had grass tiles, lava, ice, dirt,
water.
It was a very diverse range of tiles, which all had their own separate rule sets, which made it very interesting. Also in this set, which was called Raza the Valkyrie, you have miniatures, and they are little plastic miniatures pre-painted that go off of a theme. You have your army guys, your modern guns, grenades type of guys. You have your fantasy characters, your warriors, your Valkyries. You have robots, mechs. You have snake lizard guys, that crawl around. You have gods, essentially, pieces. And all of these are supposed to say, this is a battle throughout time.
So like Eternal Champions, the board game.
Well, okay. I guess you can look at it like that. And it was very smart of them because they knew if this became popular, endless expandability. Because you have 6 factions, your robots, your Valkyries, your army guys. But within those factions, you could do whatever you wanted. And that's exactly what they did. As HeroScape grew from the master set in 2004, it went on to have dozens of expansion sets, which added in new tile types, new scenario types, as in maybe you'd get a wall, like a physical up and down wall to put on your map, or you would get a bridge, like extended bridge pieces. You would have trees to make your map more interesting, and they actually added parts to the game. So as they brought out more expansions, you got more characters, you got orcs, you got all these type of new fantasy things, as well as new army guys, new spies, new mechs. So the game kept expanding, and it expanded from 2004 when it was released all the way to 2010 where the game was officially discontinued. And the way that transition happened was when Wizards of the Coast sold to Hasbro. First person to release, I should step back for a second. The first person that released HeroScape was Milton Bradley. And then they later sold to Wizards of the Coast, who sold to Hasbro. So HeroScape was a very popular, it was a very profitable outfit in 2004, 2005. They could not keep these on the shelf. It was a big ticket item. Sets would cost $60, $70, $80 for the master sets on the shelf, and they couldn't keep them in stock.
I recall you bought and sold a bunch of these for some profit.
Yeah, we'll go into that.
Yeah.
As it went on, they wanted to make production cheaper, and they wanted to shift from this expansive anything goes type of affair to a more focused affair in the D&D license. And that transition was the beginning of the end. When they started
D&D.
when they made master sets that took away from the lore that they had already built, people felt that this was now just shoehorning people to get them to play 5th edition D&D. Because you had all your standard monsters, your skeletons, your ghouls, your zombies, and people didn't want that. The people who were playing HeroScape at the time wanted to live in their universe. They didn't want to go into the D&D universe. So that had a lot of backlash attached to it. And eventually it was so much that Hasbro was like, well, we expected this to sell tons, and it did not sell well. We're done. And that was it. They just axed the line in 2010 for something that, of course, the popularity had waned since 2004, but it was still profitable. The old properties were still profitable. And they had other spin-offs before. They had released 2 Marvel expansions that used licensed heroes, your Spider-Mans, your Venoms, your Fantastic Four, and those did well because they could play by themselves, or you could integrate them into the HeroScape system. So now that you've got a little bit of a history of HeroScape,
Could you not integrate the D&D guys in with the rest of the guys?
you could, but it was something where they wanted you to play the D&D things by the D&D self.
Did they only release the one D&D set, or were there tons of them?
The D&D stuff had expansions as well,
right?
But they never had the popularity they were expecting, the profit they were expecting.
So what you're saying is once Wizards of the Coast took over, they only put out D&D expansions and nothing else?
They stopped the other.
That explains that.
They
Okay,
stopped
that would
doing the
explain
other
the
stuff.
backlash.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I could see why people would like not want to play D&D, but I mean, if you had everything else, who cares?
Correct.
Yeah. Big mistake.
And so let's talk about how HeroScape is actually played. You build a hex map out of your hundreds of pieces. And remember, every expansion that you bought had some pieces with it. So if you were someone who collected everything, you would have thousands of hexes. And people would buy extra master sets, which had the largest bulk of hexes, to make the even bigger maps.
Which is what you did, as I
yes,
recall.
I have quite a few sets. And you can build very elaborate maps. And there's a scenario book you can play through that have pre-constructed maps, tell you how to set it up, have special objectives, and go that way too. So first things you do is you build your map. And then everyone who plays gets allotted so many points. And each character in HeroScape comes in two varieties. You either have a hero or you have a squad. A hero is one guy that has improved stats, improved life points, and improved special ability. And then you have your squads that only have one hit point, but you get usually 2 to 5 of them. And they all have their special ability. So you've got your small guys and your big guys.
But it's sort of like army guys are ninjas. Or like the samurais were a squad, right?
Right. They're all themed. You get little robots, whatever. And each thing has an allotted amount of points that you spend, and everyone picks their units, and you can mix and match and do whatever you want. And then you put them on the map, and you either play the scenario, which could have several. It could just be get from here to there, or collect something and bring it back to your base, whatever. Or you could just play deathmatch with your buddies. It has rules for terrain differences, shooting through trees, water travel, how much you move, and the hits and misses is all based off of dice versus your attack versus their defense. So there is, in that element, there is still luck involved, but that's pretty much true of all of your miniature war game type things. It's nice that you can mitigate the randomness based on positioning, line of sight, terrain height differences, terrain aspects like trees and rocks and stuff like that. So it is random. You can get someone who just gets a lucky hit and it sucks. But there's also ways to mitigate that, which makes it a strategic war game. And that's pretty much it. The popularity of this grew from two main aspects. Aspect one, the modular board type was outstanding. You could take these boards and integrate them into your Mech Warrior games, your D&D Outside Adventures, which was always so hard to map otherwise.
Champions perfect because it's a hex-based game. It
system.
was, at least, back in those days.
So a lot of people would buy this not to play the game, but to get the pieces. They were very, very high quality.
Yeah.
They fit together very well.
Yeah.
And it was something that you could expand as you went along. You didn't have to buy everything you needed just at once. You could even buy just small expansions instead of buying the large ones right off the bat. So the land pieces were outstanding. The second big draw of this game was the miniatures. Super high quality.
The best.
Pre-painted miniatures.
They were the best.
They came with a card, this weirdly shaped card that had all their statistics on it that was high quality printed. The pictures on it were great. The art on this was terrific where it did have art, but the miniatures themselves were high quality plastic with high quality paint jobs, and there were hundreds of them by the end. Hundreds. It was so popular, and it was something, again, you could use them in the game, have great fun with them, or you could take these miniatures to your other role-playing games.
Which we did, yeah.
Yeah, and it worked great.
Yeah, they were the pinnacle of plastic artwork for a game like this. They were, because you see a lot of these. We've made fun of a bunch of these. Like I'll go with HeroClix as an example. When you take a good hard look at the HeroClix was like sort of a competing miniature game where you had a dial that would be at the bottom of the character's base and you would spin it. Remember this?
Yes, absolutely.
And if you looked at these characters, a lot of them were just straight up shoddy looking. They were poorly. Hey, listen, it was what it was.
It was in the beginning. HeroClix had very high quality, and the quality dwindled as it went on, as they tried to save money.
It was a tremendous piece of art. All of them were beautiful.
But HeroScape, and even outside of the miniatures, the trees that they had, the bridges, the castle walls. You could build whole castles, and they had castle walls with gates and everything. It was amazing.
The water had a clear aspect to it that was nice.
In the first edition. The second edition, they changed the water. And that's the last thing about this I want to bring up before we actually talk about how we enjoyed the game. The collectability of HeroScape was astounding. They were packaged sets. They weren't random draws. And the creator said, we will never do random draws, and they never did. That's something they actually stuck their word to. But what they did do was have store exclusives.
Yes.
Walmart and Toys R Us had the biggest run on this, where you could only buy certain sets in certain stores. The other thing that they did a ton with HeroScape was have specialized figures made for things like Gen Con, where they would give them away, and the only way to get them, and you could get them for free, was to visit them at Gen Con or visit them at Comic Con.
Yeah.
So that made this game very collectible, and the prices on eBay were extreme at times. Some of the Comic Con ones, for example, or the Gen Con ones, where you could get them for free, would sell for hundreds of dollars. Hundreds of dollars. So the mad fandom of collecting these things were there, and they were in high demand. They could not keep these things on the shelf, which even increased the demand for them further. So it was incredible how much these were sought after. And it's because they had so many different uses. Now, the game itself, Aaron, we have certainly played this many, many, many times.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about it?
I enjoyed the game for what it was. I mean, when you're a role player and you play a war game, for me, there's always sort of a gap there. It's kind of lacking. For my things, when you play a role-playing game, you get both as opposed to just getting a little bit of each.
Sure.
But this game was fun. I thought that it was fairly well balanced-ish. There's a couple of guys I thought were a little overpowered, as I recall. But the biggest, this game had two major drawbacks for me.
Okay.
One was set up and takedown time.
Yes.
It would take you to put a map together of any sort of variance. It would take you a good while to build it up. I mean, especially if you had a vision in your head.
Yeah.
You could sit down and write down all this stuff and try to tell yourself how it was going to go, but you had to have the pieces for it too. And the second thing is the storage of this stuff. I remember you had all sorts of trouble, and he would have crates full of this stuff because it's huge. It takes a tremendous amount of space to store just the guys, but not counting the loads and loads of board pieces. And then I never thought the costs were that extravagant. I mean,
I think they were fair.
I think they were. I mean, this was as the high quality items you're going to buy in a game.
Not the aftermarket costs; those were incredible.
Yeah, that's different.
But the on-the-shelf costs were fair.
And you generally found what you were looking for. I remember you going to stores and seeing this stuff and calling you, "Hey, do you need this?" Well,
here's
I've got
the thing:
that.
I actually would track release dates to the point where I knew when my local Walmart or my local Toys R Us were putting the boxes on the shelves. And I would be standing there while they're putting them on the shelves.
Yeah.
So,
but in terms of the actual game, it was okay.
It was okay.
In terms of the board, it was top shelf, tippity top. It put a lot of other, a lot of people sold three-dimensional dungeon accoutrement and or systems that you could play in D&D and stuff. And this is easily the most flexible and cheapest. If you consider how much those other ones would cost, and to world build in. So there was that. Now the game I thought was pretty good, but again, you had to be. For me, using this for Champions was great, or Mech Warrior, because you didn't have to go totally crazy.
Yes.
Mech Warrior works so well, both those, because they're both hex based. They work very well the role playing games, the combat of this. I would use those way more for that than I would for. I mean, we did it many times, but the game was fun too, and we really went through a phase where we played a lot of it. Yeah. So I endorse it. I thought it was a fun game. You know.
HeroScape for me was something I would play when other people wanted to play it. I had no problems playing it. This would not be something I would go to just because I'm not a big strategic war game type of gamer. However, the rules for this were simple enough that you could tell somebody once and they probably would pick up on it, but complex enough that there was strategy on terrain and location and range and that sort of affair. For me, the best part of this was putting together a team. These wacky teams where you might have cyborgs and ninjas running together.
Yeah.
And they might really mesh well, or sometimes the powers don't mesh well at all.
You should mention that these different characters had point totals.
Yeah, I did.
And so you would if you had a 500 point like Mega Robot, the other guy could have like 5 or 6 or 7 guys that would equal 500 points, and they would try to swarm you effectively.
And I got really into the collecting part of this. I did buy some of those exclusive Gen Con characters, not for the prices I said before, but I did have a lot of them. And my goal for this was to collect everything. I actually would buy 2 sets at a time, open one to play with, and keep one boxed. And I did end up selling my boxed collection many years ago, before the series had even ran its course. But I sold it for a tidy profit.
Yeah.
But as you said, the teardown of this and setup is long. It's fun for me, but it is long. There are programs online that can assist you on pre-building them. So you build them virtually, and then you have a map system to build them in real life. The characters I stored in tackle boxes, fishing tackle boxes, because there were so many of them. And some of these characters were large.
Yeah.
I mean, some would take up 2, 3, 4 hexes.
Yeah, these weren't like all standard the same size. Some guys were being massive.
And it added to it because the game had scale.
There was like dinosaurs and stuff, as I recall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So for me, if you're interested in this, if you're interested in the system, I highly recommend picking it up to play with the pieces. If you've got someone, especially if you are into war games, miniature games, this is dumbed down to like say some of your battle techs or some of your more intense ones, but it's still fun. It's still a great time. The prices for this all over the place on eBay. You can get boxed master sets, original master sets for $30, which is cheaper than they were on the shelf. Or you can spend the big bucks and get huge collections for $1,300, $1,500.
Now, do you have any of these left?
Yes, I have all my unboxed.
Really?
Yeah. I collected up to about season 6. So I have about half of everything.
So, because I will say this, one thing for me on these, the storage on these was just prohibitive. It takes us a ton of space.
I have several plastic tubs.
It's funny. I didn't know you'd kept any of these. Well, good for you. Good for you. So I agree. It was a fun game. We should probably drag that back out sometime and give it a whirl. Yeah. It's always a crowd pleaser too when you.
It is, because it's very visually appealing.
You know what else is a crowd pleaser, Brent?
What's that?
It's spinning this dadgum wheel.
Oh, I don't know about that, but
Let's
we'll
give
see
it
what
a shot. Now, tell the fine people, Brent was a good boy this week. It happened. And Brent went out and added some pie pieces to the mix. And these were sent to us by users, right, Brent?
That's right. These are all Patreon requests.
Oh, boy.
And you can have your voice put onto the wheel for as little as $1 a month. Get on our Patreon. which links us to our Discord. Get in there and tell us exactly what you
Now,
want to see.
what did the fine folk suggest that we actually replaced one thing? Tell them what we did here.
We
Brent.
replace the chat choice with Bizarro. And Bizarro, if it comes up, it means we will spin it again. Whatever subject comes up, we will pick games for each other to experience.
Oh, I like it. And what was the newest pie piece we put on here to replace board games?
Board games came out, and movie games, video games with movie tie-ins went in.
All right, another great addition here.
Yeah,
so,
and we've got some of the new pieces, not to spoil it, but we've got some new consoles coming up, some new computers coming up, and some new topics coming up. So a little bit of everything will be coming on the wheel in the next few months.
So, Brent, why don't you give this sucker a spin and let's see how we do here. Good luck. Pick a winner, kid.
Good spin.
Looks like he didn't knock anything out of its place. No controversy this week.
And we have...
Okay, this looks like an... Let's see, what do you got there, Brenny?
We have early 1990s arcade games.
All right, early 90s arcade games.
Oh, there's so many good ones.
It's been a while since we visited the arcade, Brent.
Yes.
Despite the fact we're in one.
That's true.
Early 90s arcade games. Now, this was the resurgence era.
Yes.
Before overall depletion, unfortunately. And the invasion, because at some point we got to do ticket games, which would be the next phase in the arcade. Which you would love that, wouldn't you? You're such a geek when it comes to the ticket games.
No, but I understand it.
So early, do you have any thoughts on the subject?
This will be from 1990 to 1994.
Okay.
Anything that had an arcade game release.
All right, fair enough. That's a good set of rules. 90 to 94. I think we can come up with something. Listen, folks, we are just... 2 weeks away, Brent, give or take, from Amigathon.
Yes.
2019. For our sister show, Amigos, Everything Amiga podcast, myself, Boat, and Brent occasionally hosts. We'll be doing 12 big hours.
Yes.
Of hot, steamy Amiga action. We're raising money for charity. Our good friends over at the Children's Miracle Network. We're going to raise some money for those fine folks. I think Boat has mentioned that we are going to try to raise 2 G's
That's our target
this year, and I think we have already, with our hourly sponsorships, have already raised the ranks to about $780.
I
so
believe
we're
that is correct.
The slots are filled. We have filled up every second of the Amigathon with game action, sponsored games from our various contributors. We appreciate y'all for kicking in some of that sweet money to help out the charity. We should mention that none of this money comes anywhere near us. It goes directly to the charity. We don't want to
we don't touch that stuff.
Don't want to be in touching that. We're getting some weirdness there. We'd love it if you would join us for Amigathon. And listen, man, we understand if you are cash strapped or whatever. Just come in, hang out, have a good time.
Say hello, and you don't have to stay for the whole 12 hours. I know I won't
you have to stay for the entire 12. We are not going to give you the hard sell. This is not a telethon where we're going to be begging for the money. You know, if you feel like you can throw some bucks in, charity, that's great. If you can't, just just chill out, watch us play some Amiga games, and chat and have a good time. This will be the final day of the Amigo Aaron weight loss wager.
Yep.
Where I wagered I could lose 100 pounds in about 6 months or so, and I will be paying $5 for every pound I come up short, Brent. And I will say I just had a cookout. Probably it cost me more than just a few hot dogs. You know what I mean?
That was like $25 out the window.
Didn't really think that through, didn't I? But if you want to pitch in, again, this is all going toward that charity. If you want to put some money on me per pound lost, you can go over to everythingamiga.com, click on the Amigo Aaron weight loss wager picture. It'll take you to an area where you can sponsor me per pound. We've got a few bucks saved up from that, which would be nice. I appreciate that. Your boy was in it fighting. I probably bit off maybe a little more than I could chew. You get it? Because it's the Amigo Aaron's weight loss wager.
I get it.
But hey, I'll put my money where my mouth has been, if you get what I mean there. When the time comes.
If your mouth was there less, you wouldn't have to pay as much.
That's right. So I'll be doing a weigh-in there on the Amigathon. Who we got to chat, Breen? You want to say shout out to anybody here?
We got Amiga Bang. Graham stopped by. Pixels at Dawn. We got Picard. Mohawk Mall.
There it is. The dummy music.
Free lunch stopped by. Geo's Lake, G Lake, as I like to call him. I know Necronon was here. There he is in chat. Picard stopped by
Twice.
Yeah, he was a good.
Wait while you're ahead.
Steve stopped by.
Good. We love the Steve. We appreciate y'all coming in. We'll be back same bat time, same bat channel next week. Brent, any final thoughts?
No, I think I'll do it.
All right, fellas. Thanks for joining us, and until we see you next week, game on. There it is. You didn't even say anything. You just put your hand out.
Now I rolled some dice.
Is that what that was?
It's a pleasure to meet you.
It's okay.
All right, I got to run.
It's over?
No, I unfortunately don't have time for post banter.
Why is that?
I got stuff I got to be doing.
What do you got to do? It's so important that you can't talk to the people. What do you got that's so great?
I talked to people before.
You got You're going to go home, take off your pants, and watch TV.
You're so close.
And eat beans.
I'm
just
gonna,
like the other people.
I'm going to go home, I'm going to take off my pants, and then put them in a washer because I'm about a million weeks behind on laundry.
Listen, do what all the rich people do. Just go out and buy you a complete new wardrobe. And burn the old stuff.
Don't tempt me, man.
Just burn it. You know, hey, I've had to get a whole new wardrobe on my pants that keep falling off.
That's what belts are for.
The Amigo and weight loss wagers taking a toll on the old clothing budget, if you know what I mean. So I can't.
Necronon wants to know what's wrong. What was wrong with the Spectrum after it overheated, and how did you fix it?
Who's this Necronom?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you. Here's a scoop, Necronom. Here's my theory. Okay. You know, I am a renowned repair person, as you know. And so here's what I did to fix this Spectrum. Opened the Spectrum up, cleaned it off. I resoldered a few chips in there. The solder looked a little wonky. You know what I mean?
Oh, sorry, you're still talking.
Oh, I'm just trying. He asked. Put the cover back on. And then I noticed that the power supply boat had rigged up was the most idiotically wired contraption. He calls me Hack Dowdy. Do you know that? Because he says I'm a big hack. I do everything half-assed. This was the half-assed job to end all jobs. And this power supply could have burning down the house.
Pixels nailed it.
Yeah. And so, what'd he say?
He said he thinks boat was what was wrong with it.
Bam. But, I mean, here's what I think happened. I think this thing got mega hot because he left it on for like a weekend. Okay?
Yeah. Don't do that.
I think it's possible that some of the solder liquefied.
Yep.
It's unlikely, but it's possible. All I did was go to touch up some solder points. But the power supply
rebuilt the power supply.
Well, no, I didn't rebuild it. He took a power supply like a wall wart, and he just cut it, and he just spliced it onto a cord that would fit inside the Spectrum, and then he just black taped it. And I think he may have used clear tape.
The correct voltage, though.
Well, yeah, and so, but what had happened is the power thing had separated one of the sides. I don't remember which one.
Oh.
So I went in. Being hacked out, here comes old Hack, and I went in and soldered these wires instead of just wire wrapped them, and then I actually put heat shrink on them, and now it looks like a proper job. Well, guess what? It's Spectrum time. That's what I did.
There you go.
Now, any number of those things could have been responsible. I thought it was done. They told me it was toast.
Well,
so there you go.
The lesson to take away from this is don't leave your Spectrum on for 2 weeks.
Well, the Spectrum doesn't have any.
Days.
There's no way you know it's on.
There's no heat. Well,
so what Boatster needs to do is get a gimmick to just. I think he's got it hooked up now to an on-off switch on the thing. On the like a power gimmick.
Yeah, power.
This strip. Is the thing. This means power gimmick. That's what that means.
Sure?
That's right. Or this.
That's no. Never mind. All right, I gotta go.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We will see you again next week. Adios, muchachos.
Have a good one, guys.